Good day traders, this is Stefanos on behalf of Tixee, and in today's webinar we'll be giving an outlook of the market for the week of the 18th until the 22nd of April. Before we dive into the webinar, listing out some of the key highlights, we'll be discussing for the next week the meeting minutes of the Reserve Bank of Australia on Tuesday, as well as the impact of IBM's most recent stock upgrade. As always, please know that all of the ideas discussed in this webinar are my own opinions and do not make up for any form of investment and trading advice, neither any recommendations to buy or sell. You should always do your own research and due diligence before buying or selling any securities, financial products, or instruments, and whether you use any kind of trading strategies. Any information that relates to past performance is not indicative of future results. Now, kicking things off with stocks, like we said, a name to look out for with the open on Tuesday next week is going to be IBM. Now, let's not forget that we currently have the Easter holidays in the US as well as many other parts of the world. Therefore, the US stock market will be closed on Monday and will open on Tuesday instead, which is why we mentioned to be on the lookout for the Tuesday open. IBM received a price upgrade last week on Thursday, as the markets were also closed for Good Friday on Friday. The stock was upgraded by Morgan Stanley, who changed the rating from equal weight to overweight with a revised price target from $147 to $150. If we look at the chart here, which is the weekly time frame of IBM, the price is currently sitting at $126.59. So this means if we're looking for the price target set by Morgan Stanley, it represents more or less a 20% stock upgrade, price upgrade. So it means it does have some room for further upside, which would put it all the way up to the highs right here. If I just zoom a little bit on the chart, we see that the first resistance zone is likely going to be here before we could potentially see it moving up to this zone and maybe even further up, which is the 150 mark, which is also conveniently sitting at this resistance point right here. Currently on the year, IBM stock price is only down by 5.6%, and I say only down because if we consider the other tech stocks that have been dropping quite significantly, some of them being down even by more than 20% on the year, then IBM is not faring that bad compared to some of the other big names. Now, moving on to Forex. Next week it's going to be slightly mixed with some high impact events, while on some other days things are going to be somewhat quieter, as some countries, like we said, they're also still observing Easter. So we can obviously have a look at the economic calendar, which you can find again simply by going to the homepage of Tixee. You navigate to the Education Research tab, you switch on the economic calendar here. Again, you can use any of the filters that suit you best with regards to the importance and what kind of countries you like to filter the data with. For the sake of the webinar, we're going to switch this to next week because that's what we obviously want. And I'll set the medium and high impact events. Now, if we look on which is Monday here, also keep an eye on the time because obviously I selected the UK's time zone, which is GMT+1. So make sure you also select the one that's most relevant to you as well. As we can see on Monday, if I just switch to the low impact, most of the countries are going to be observing the Easter holidays. So markets in these countries, which is going to include obviously the US as well, they're going to be closed with regards to their respective stock markets. So things are essentially going to kick off from Tuesday onwards. As we're going to have here, we can see we have the meeting minutes by the Reserve Bank of Australia, where we're likely going to get some updates with regards to the interest rate hike cycle. Nothing else of significance on Tuesday. We'll be moving on to Wednesday on this occasion, where we see here we have the first event is going to be the trade balance coming out of Japan. And again, always worth using this little tooltip here to gauge more or less what kind of volatility you can expect more or less in the hours following the specific event. Later during the day, still in the morning, however, we're going to have the PPI figure coming out of Germany. And if I scroll further down, we see here that we're going to be having the inflation rate coming out both of Canada, which is going to be lunchtime UK time, and we're also going to be having the inflation figures coming out of New Zealand to finish the day off. Then this is going to be Thursday. We're going to be having the inflation rate coming out of the European Union, and we'll be finishing the day off with two speeches from the Fed's chairman, Jerome Powell, which is going to be at 4 in the afternoon and 6 in the afternoon, respectively. Again, this is all UK time. Now, surprisingly, one of the most active days of the week is going to be Friday, which will be finishing the week off as well. We'll be starting things off with the inflation rate coming out of Japan, which is then followed by the retail sales figure coming out of the UK at 7 in the morning. And if we scroll further down, we'll see that we're going to be having the retail sales figure coming out of Canada, which is going to be at lunchtime 1:30. And shortly after the retail sales figure, we'll be having the speech from the ECB's president, Christine Lagarde. And we're also going to be having a speech from the Bank of England Governor Bailey, which is essentially going to be finishing the week off on Friday. So yeah, this is with regards to the economic calendar for next week. Again, some days are going to be busier than others, but again, maybe one of the days to look out for the most is going to be Friday, seeing as how we're going to have the two speeches, as well as the retail sales figure and the inflation figure out of Japan, and also the retail sales figure from the UK. Next up, we'll be moving to some of the commodities, which is going to be oil and gold. With regards to oil, if I just switch back to the economic calendar, as usual, we're going to have the oil inventory report coming out on Wednesday. You can obviously use the previous figures as well as the forecast ones to gauge more or less what could be the expected outcome. But again, for me, one of the most important aspects is to just use any of the tooltips you have with regards to the volatility that will be following after the event is released. Again, this is a little bit of a surprising thing because obviously we have the Easter holidays on Monday, so I'd expect that the figure would have been released on Thursday. But again, a reminder, it's actually going to be released on the usual day, which is going to be Wednesday. So that is the event to look out for with regards to oil. Now, moreover, we're going to be waiting for further updates as to when the EU plans to impose its embargo on the Russian oil imports, because as we mentioned in the look back as well, they made their announcement last week that they'd be looking for a total ban of Russian imports, which, as we can see from the chart itself, it actually pushed prices further higher, which was by about 6% and crossing above the $100 mark again. And if we look at gold, the event to be on the lookout is obviously still going to be the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. As we mentioned, the US sent an additional military aid worth up to $800 million, which again, this is more or less like a sign that the war is potentially far from over. And aside from the war, we're also going to be waiting for further interest rate updates from the US, which is again the other hot topic to be on the watch out with regards to gold. And we'll be finishing things off with crypto by looking at Bitcoin specifically. It fell, as we can see, we're looking on the weekly time frame here. It fell for a third consecutive week in a row last week, which could potentially be repeated again next week over a report which tracks Bitcoin mining. Now, the report showed that Bitcoin mining, which often serves as an indicator of demand, it dropped by 1.26%, which again could be one of the factors which could potentially drive prices lower for Bitcoin and more specifically cryptos next week. As we can see from the chart, Bitcoin is still trading within this bear flag pattern that we have noted for the past couple of webinars, and it's looking that it's set out to retest the bottom limit of the bear flag. And if it does manage to break down below, it has some further room to move all the way down to the mid 34,000s and even further lower to the upper 28,000s. As we can see, we have this support zone right here, which could very well retest again. If it breaks this bear, we can just see it consolidate here without making any moves higher. We could see it dropping one more leg down and again towards this zone right here. And yep, there you have it. This is as far as the outlook for next week's markets. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Till then, trade safe.